Welcome to Dialogue. This conversation is part of our series on Trust the Experts, and today we're focusing on a really powerful and I think often invisible force, credentialism. I'm going to start with a contrast. Think about how we used to recognize authority. Not that long ago, it wasn't about a PDF attached to an email, it was tangible. You trusted the architect because the bridge he built was still standing after 50 years. You trusted the farmer because their expertise was the reason the town got through a brutal winter. Authority was something you could see, something that was demonstrated. It was a verb. And now, authority so often feels like a title on a Zoom call. We are living deep in the age of credentialism. It's this quiet consensus that a degree automatically equals intelligence, that a certificate is the same as wisdom, and that a title means you hold the truth. So today we're diving deep into that belief system. This isn't about dismissing education, not at all. It's about questioning the paperwork around it. What happens when we as a society just sort of agree that if knowledge is laminated, it must be right? Our mission today is to look at the hidden costs of swapping real judgment for a piece of paper. What do we lose?
And it's a fascinating question because credentialism wasn't born evil. I mean, in its original form, it was incredibly useful. It was a solution. You have a problem of information asymmetry. I don't know you, you don't know me. I need a quick signal about your basic knowledge. But that's the key, a signal. A useful signal is not the same thing as an identity. So what we're really looking at is how this mechanism, this reliance on paperwork, just went completely rogue, how it started overriding actual judgment or deep lived experience. And that's the core question for us today. How did a simple, efficient signal, a way to say, hey, I've been formally introduced to this topic, transform into this impenetrable, almost weaponized identity? It's like the difference between using a hammer to build a house and then starting to worship the hammer itself.
The tool became a totem.
Exactly. The tool became a totem. And understanding that shift is, I think, the key to everything else.
Okay, let's unpack that evolution. Because if we get the original intent, it really highlights how far we've strayed. If you look back at the origins, medieval guild, early universities, credentials were about process. They were signals of completion, and that's it. Let's stick with that medieval artisan idea.
Yeah.
A mason, a blacksmith. Their credential was proof of apprenticeship. It wasn't some grand statement about their innate genius.
No, not at all.
It was just documented evidence. This person spent 7 years under a master. They've seen how it's done. It was confirmation of training, of exposure. The message was simple. This person is not starting from absolute zero.
Right. They've put in the hours.
Exactly. And that distinction is so critical. Think about a driver's license today. It means you passed a basic test. You know where the brake is. It doesn't mean you're qualified to be a Formula One driver.
A very low bar, intentionally.
A very low-stakes certification. It just means you're probably not an immediate danger to society. And that was the original spirit, evidence of an introduction. But the shift, the one we're living through, is that this humble intention, this person has been introduced, has been warped into something absolute. It's become, this person is the subject. This person has the final word. The signal became the substance.
And when the signal becomes the substance, the function of the degree changes entirely. It's no longer a practical tool. It's a strategic one. It stops being a simple key to get you in the door for your first job. And it transforms. It becomes an identity shield. It becomes a debate weapon. And of course, a huge marker of social status.
An identity shield. I like that. Unpack that a little.
Well, think about the shift in how we react to new ideas. Historically, if someone proposed something complex, a new theory, a new design, the questions were about the idea itself. People would ask, is this sound? Does the argument hold up? Will this actually work?
The focus was on the merit.
Entirely on the merit. But now, the first thing we do is vet the messenger. The default question has become, what are their credentials? Where did they go to school? What's their title? The quality of the argument gets pushed to the back, if it's even considered at all. We check the institutional stamp of approval before we ever check the logic.
But couldn't you argue there's a good reason for that? That it's a necessary filter. You don't want someone without an engineering degree designing a skyscraper. It prevents dangerous amateurs from causing real harm.
That's a completely fair point, and it gets to the nuance. The shield should be a filter. It should stop the totally unqualified person from doing harm. That's its utility. The danger is when that same shield is used to protect an established but maybe flawed idea from a competent challenger who just lacks the official paperwork. Let's take a corporate example. You have a team of senior executives, all with top-tier MBAs. They've been using the same financial model for a decade. Then a new young analyst comes in. She didn't go to a top business school. Maybe she just finished an intensive data science boot camp, but she's brilliant, and she spots a fundamental catastrophic flaw in the model's core assumption.
Okay. I see where this is going.
The fastest way for those senior executives to dismiss her findings isn't to engage with her data, which would be hard work. It's to deploy the credential shield. It becomes, well, she only has a certificate. She doesn't have the theoretical grounding we got in our MBA programs. The title becomes a fortress to protect the status quo.
So they attack the messenger to avoid dealing with the message.
Precisely. They invalidate the person so they don't have to do the much harder work of grappling with the data. And that tactical use is what makes the shift from signal to identity so damaging.
This leads us into something that feels almost like magic, or maybe alchemy. I call it the paper transmutation effect. It's this bizarre phenomenon where the perceived value of a person's thoughts instantly changes just because they acquired a document. Think about it. You have a person. They go into a graduate program with all their existing beliefs, their cognitive biases, their political leanings, all the stuff they grew up with. They do the work, they pass the test, they pay the tuition, and then one day they get the diploma. The day before they had that piece of paper, if they shared their thoughts on, say, urban planning, it was just an opinion. Anyone could debate it, anyone could dismiss it. It's just one person's view.
Right. It has no special weight.
But the moment they get that diploma, maybe a master's in urban planning, that exact same thought coming from the exact same brain is suddenly rebranded. It's not an opinion anymore.
Now it's expertise.
Now it's expertise.
Yeah.
And it's treated with this reverence.
That's a perfect way to put it. The diploma didn't magically install new critical thinking skills or erase their biases. It's much simpler. It just gave them a new font.
A new font. I love that.
Yeah, it's an institutional font license. It allows them to express their pre-existing opinions. But now they're packaged as objective fact derived from rigorous training. It's a social marketing trick, really.
Yeah.
Turning belief into authority through a transaction.
And what's the biggest cost of that trick? I mean, what gets lost in this transmutation process?
The collateral damage is enormous. It's the systematic and often, brutal devaluing of any kind of knowledge that can't be laminated.
Right.
Practical wisdom, skilled trades, the kind of deep knowledge that comes from decades of lived experience, all of it gets shoved to the side.
It creates this completely artificial power dynamic.
Absolutely. It favors theoretical distance over practical intimacy. Let's go back to that electrician example. You have a master electrician, 25 years on the job. This guy has seen everything. He can diagnose a massive system failure just by the faint smell of ozone or the specific hum a transformer's making. His knowledge is deep, it's intuitive, it's baked into his bones.
Into his wisdom.
It's wisdom. It's a collection of 1,000 stories of failure and success. And on the other side, you have a 26-year-old corporate risk assessor. He just got his master's in engineering management.
He has the paperwork.
He has the paperwork. He's never been in a live plant, but he can quote the regulatory code chapter and verse. And because he holds that easily audited piece of paper, he has the institutional power to dismiss the electrician's warning. The electrician says, "I'm telling you that system is about to fail," and the response is, "Well, your intuition isn't in our compliance matrix." The story is devalued in favor of the checklist.
So what's the incentive for the institution? Why does the bureaucracy always bet on the paperwork over the 25 years of experience?
2 words: scalability and liability. The master electrician's knowledge is messy. It's not transferable. If he leaves, that knowledge walks out the door. And critically, his knowledge challenges the system. He forces the institution to think.
But the risk assessor's report.
The risk assessor's paperwork is clean, it's predictable, it can be filed away in a cabinet, and most importantly, it guarantees legal compliance.
It covers them.
It's their get-out-of-jail-free card. If the plant blows up, the corporation can hold up the report and say, "We follow the standardized process recommended by our credentialed expert." It's easier to manage paperwork than it is to manage reality.
I think that gets to a really uncomfortable truth about the university system itself. The decision to trade messy, genuine critical thinking for the clean, scalable metric of, well, just completion. Why did we let intelligence get replaced by just finishing the program?
It's a business decision at its core. It's about scale. True critical thinking, real judgment. It's just incredibly hard to measure objectively when you're dealing with thousands of students. I mean, critical thought isn't just knowing facts. It's knowing which facts matter. It's seeing the contradictions. It's synthesizing something new out of chaos. It's messy.
So how do you slap a letter grade on that for an entire freshman class?
You can't. Not efficiently.
You can't, right?
You absolutely cannot at scale. So the institutions perform a masterful substitution. They swap out the hard-to-measure thing, real insight, for easy-to-measure proxies. So the focus shifts. It becomes about test scores that measure memorization, about following the citation format perfectly, about hitting deadlines.
It becomes about compliance.
Exactly. The ultimate measure of success for the student is no longer did I have a profound original thought. It's a much simpler binary question. Did I finish the program? The whole system rewards persistence over brilliance.
And this is where the credential becomes, as you said earlier, a tactical weapon. Because people who graduate from that system, they intuitively know how to use it. They know how to deploy it to end a debate.
Oh, absolutely. They're trained in it. The credential becomes a tool to shut down intellectual curiosity, to avoid the hard work of explaining your reasoning. When a credentialed person gets challenged, maybe on a shaky assumption or some weak data, the quickest escape route is to pull rank, to assert dominance.
Right.
The conversation stops being about the evidence. It's no longer, here's my reasoning, let's discuss it. It just immediately collapses into, I'm qualified. I have the PhD from this institution. You are not. And it's so effective because it flips the whole script. Suddenly, the challenger has to defend their right to even ask a question, instead of the expert having to defend their claim.
It's an intellectual shutdown.
It is. It's designed to make the other person feel foolish or out of their depth for even daring to question the institutional authority.
And that has a massive chilling effect, doesn't it? On innovation, on new ideas. If you're a young person, a self-taught practitioner trying to break into a field, and the only way your ideas are even heard is if you already have the right letters after your name, you're basically blocked from ever challenging the old guard.
You've just described the perfect feedback loop. Established ideas are protected by an administrative wall, not by their objective truth. Real progress, especially in fields that move fast, like tech, requires you to question the very foundation of the field. But if the credential is the ticket, you need to even ask the question.
You can't challenge the past because you don't have the laminated permission slip to speak.
And what you get is a generation of people who are excellent at following the rules and almost no one who is authorized to change them.
The only reason this system works, this whole prioritizing of paperwork, is because of degree inflation. I mean, the sheer explosion in graduate degrees, specialized certificates, it's mind-boggling. This graduate degree assembly line is being powered by this really potent three-way economic engine. And it always chooses volume over rigor.
The incentives are just perfectly aligned for mass production. It's a perfect storm. So on the supply side, you've got the universities. They needed massive, reliable revenue streams to fund their sprawling empires. And professional master's programs became the ultimate cash cow.
High-margin products.
Incredibly high margin. They require fewer tenured professors, less expensive lab space. You can run them with adjuncts and online platforms. It's a great business model.
Then on the demand side, you have pure desperation. Students are looking at this hyper-competitive job market and feel like they need another credential just to get a foot in the door.
Just to get past the algorithm.
Right. The bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma. So people feel forced onto this credential treadmill just to stay in the same place.
And that leads to the third player in this engine, the employer. HR departments are drowning in applications. They can't possibly vet everyone, so they happily outsourced their first round of screening to the universities. They're basically saying, look, if this person managed to survive your expensive 2-year program, we'll assume they have a baseline level of intelligence and persistence.
The university becomes a very expensive sorting hat.
That's a great way to put it. It's a state-sanctioned sorting agency.
So what's the inevitable result of all this? The standards for what's actually being taught have to drop. They just have to. You can't maintain deep intellectual rigor when your business model is based on speed and convenience. The marketing language tells the whole story. It's all accelerate your career in 12 months.
Executive certification in 6 weekends.
Exactly. It's not about a transformation of the mind anymore. It's a purely transactional purchase of a piece of paper.
And the most dangerous outcome of this assembly line is that it mass produces the feeling of authority without the underlying substance. You have huge numbers of people graduating who succeeded because they were good at navigating the bureaucracy. They paid their bills on time, they handed in the assignments, they complied.
They finished the maze.
And this creates a huge perception gap in their own minds. They walk out of that system with this deeply internalized belief that I am now an authority. But that feeling isn't based on having made a novel contribution or having mastered a difficult subject. It's based on having endured the process. They
Mhm.
confuse endurance with expertise.
Can you give us a real-world contrast to show that gap?
Sure. Think about a traditional old-school PhD program in, say, theoretical physics from 50 years ago. That process was designed to break you. It demanded years of solitary work, a genuinely original contribution to human knowledge, brutal oral exams. The entire point was to cultivate intellectual humility by forcing you to confront the vastness of your own ignorance. Now compare that with a modern, one-year, fully online master's certificate in global strategic leadership.
Okay.
Both of these things result in an official credential. Both look good on a resume. But the level of effort, the depth of critical thinking required, the intellectual humility that's cultivated, they're not even in the same universe. The PhD tested your mastery through fire. The certificate tested your ability to pay tuition and absorb prepackaged information. Yet in the public square, they're often treated as if they carry a similar weight of authority.
It's classic inflation. The currency is being printed way faster than the value is being created.
Precisely.
This inflation of authority isn't just an economic issue, is it? It becomes a tool for narrative control. Once you have a market flooded with credentialed people, they can use those titles to wrap their own ideology in the cloak of expertise.
It is the ultimate bias masking machine. It's so effective. When someone with a fancy title speaks on TV or writes an op-ed, they're automatically granted this air of neutrality. This allows them to present what are fundamentally personal preferences or political values as if they are undeniable data-driven conclusions.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Imagine an activist stands up and says, "I believe we should invest heavily in public transit because I value community and the environment over individual convenience." That is clearly identifiable as a statement of values.
Right, you know where they're coming from.
Exactly. But now imagine an economist from a think tank with a PhD says, "Our econometric modeling indicates that a $50 billion investment in public transit is mandated by the data to ensure long-term economic stability."
It sounds objective.
It sounds completely objective.
Ah,
But their personal values, their think tank's agenda, it's all still there. It's just perfectly hidden behind the authority of the data and the PhD.
so the degree doesn't remove the bias. It just gives it a much better hiding place. It gives it a shield of jargon.
That's the linguistic weapon. The expert speaks in a language designed to be impenetrable to outsiders. Complex terminology, abstract models, proprietary metrics. It forces any challenger to first spend all their energy just trying to decode the language, and by the time they do, the conversation has moved on. It's a power move. The debate ends not because the expert was right, but because everyone else got lost in the translation.
And this feeds directly into the media's obsession with credentials, this phenomenon you call expert theater.
Oh, the media loves it. They are completely reliant on it. For a news organization under pressure, credentials solve so many problems at once. First, it gives you the authoritative look. The chyron with PhD, major university underneath someone's name just looks serious. It signals gravitas.
It simplifies things for the audience.
It simplifies everything. Don't worry your head about this complex issue, just listen to the professor. But the most important function, by far, is liability management. If the network airs an opinion that turns out to be wildly wrong, they can just wash their hands of it. They can say, "Hey, we didn't say that. We just had an expert on from Yale who said it. We were just platforming the authority."
It's pure theater. The goal is to minimize their own risk, not to find the actual truth.
Exactly. So what you end up with is this rotating cast of characters in the expert theater, but they're all reading from a very similar script.
They all come from the same handful of schools, the same intellectual traditions.
Precisely. They come from the same training programs, they're funded by the same grants, they operate in the same silos, so they just reinforce this very narrow institutional consensus. And through sheer repetition, that consensus starts to sound like objective truth.
And the cost is that we never hear from the outsider. The practitioner on the ground, the cross-disciplinary thinker, they don't get a ticket to the show.
They're not even in the building. Public discourse becomes an echo chamber, and we become blind to any reality that doesn't fit neatly into the established credentialed framework.
Let's talk about the ultimate price, the failures. Because history isn't just full of examples where the experts were wrong. It's full of examples where the biggest, most catastrophic failures were led by the people with the most impressive credentials in the room.
It's a pattern of institutional blindness, a confident consensus that turns out to be spectacularly wrong.
The 2008 financial crisis is the poster child for this, isn't it?
It's the perfect tragic example. You had the most highly credentialed economists, bankers with multiple Ivy League degrees, heads of regulatory agencies, all of them in unison, insisting that the risk models were sound, that the system was safe.
Their collective credentialed certainty was the very thing that drove us off the cliff.
It was groupthink, disguised as high finance. They were also reassured by each other's resumes that they couldn't imagine they were all missing the simple, glaring truth.
Which was that the whole thing was built on a foundation of garbage mortgages.
Exactly. And this is where you see the system's true design. The consequences of that failure were societal. Trillions of dollars vaporized, people's lives ruined, a deep, lasting erosion of public trust.
The cost was catastrophic.
For society, yes. But here's the critical question. What did that failure cost the individual expert who designed the models or ran the banks?
Not nearly enough.
Almost nothing in comparison. They might lose a bonus, maybe they'll switch jobs, they'll go on to become a highly paid consultant or write a book about lessons learned, but their credential, the actual source of their authority, it never gets revoked. The system protects the expert status, not the public.
It sounds like the credential's primary function at that level is to grant immunity from consequences.
In many ways, yes, it's a shield. And if you look at who the system actively harms, who it silences, it's always the same people. It's the practitioners, the people on the ground who see the disconnect between the elegant theory and the messy reality. They're the ones whose warnings get ignored.
And the outsiders.
And the genuine outsiders. The cross-disciplinary thinkers. So many revolutionary ideas start with someone working outside the official channels, but they get shut down immediately because they don't have the right letterhead. The system demands you stay in your silo.
That relationship between innovation and permission seems key. Innovation, by its nature, has to break the rules.
It almost always comes from people who don't have permission, the people who are tinkering in their garage, who haven't read the academic paper that says their idea is impossible. They just care about the result.
But our whole society is now built on getting permission first. And that permission is the credential.
We've created a prerequisite for speaking that directly conflicts with the mindset needed for discovery. Innovation requires a reverence, a willingness to say the emperor has no clothes.
But to get the credential.
To get the credential requires the exact opposite. It demands years of reverence, years of strict compliance with the existing rules, respecting the hierarchy.
So the process of getting the credential filters out the very people who are most likely to innovate.
If you spend 15 years dutifully climbing a ladder, you're probably not the person who is then going to burn that ladder down, even if that's what progress requires. Your whole identity is invested in the ladder.
And maybe the ultimate stress test for this entire system is unfolding right now with the explosion of capable AI. I mean, AI is exposing this credential gap with a kind of brutal efficiency.
It really is.
What happens when an AI model, which has no degree, no student debt, no biases, can perform tasks that used to be protected by a $100,000 master's degree? You do legal discovery, draft medical reports, write functional code. The question is shifting from who can do the job to what can do the job.
And that is a deeply uncomfortable revelation for a lot of professional classes. AI is making it painfully obvious that many of the tasks we've guarded with expensive degrees don't actually require deep human judgment.
What do they require?
They require process knowledge, rule application, synthesizing huge amounts of data, things that machines are getting very, very good at.
So the degrees were just expensive permission slips all along.
In many cases, yes, they weren't a guarantee of superior intellect. They were an administrative hurdle to prove you could follow a curriculum. Now, expertise can be demonstrated directly by the output. What can the machine or the person actually produce, not what title do they hold?
Okay, so this raises the final critical question. If capability is now so easily proven by direct output, why is credentialism still so powerful? Why doesn't the free market just crush the value of the paper?
Because credentialism was never primarily about protecting truth or finding the most capable person.
What was it about?
It's about protecting something much older. Institutions, social hierarchies, and established processes. The system's main function is to control access and maintain stability for the professional class.
It's a feature, not a bug.
It's the central feature. A degree is a safe, easy filter for HR. It's not the best filter, but it's legally defensible. It creates standardized pay scales. It ensures that everyone in the boardroom speaks the same language because they all went to the same kinds of schools.
It stabilizes the structure.
It stabilizes the structure. The paper doesn't protect the truth. It protects the people who are already holding the paper.
Hmm.
So if we synthesize all of this, we really come back to that fundamental mistake. Credentialism, at the end of the day, it doesn't measure wisdom. It doesn't measure critical intelligence or insight. What it actually measures is something much simpler. It measures your ability to comply with an institution, your skill at navigating a system, and frankly, your sheer endurance to finish an expensive maze.
It rewards finishing, not thinking.
That's exactly. It rewards finishing, not thinking. And one of the sources we looked at put it just perfectly. It said, a diploma can tell you where someone sat. It cannot tell you what they understood.
And that difference between sitting in the chair and actually understanding, that's everything. And this is the final thought we want to leave all of you with today. A credential should never be an exclamation point that ends a conversation. It should be a question mark that starts one. A society that confuses paperwork with wisdom will always, always confuse authority with truth. And that is a very expensive confusion. So here's the challenge. The next time you're in a conversation and someone tries to shut it down, by pulling rank, by saying, trust me, I'm credentialed, challenge them. Not by attacking their title, but by asking the 3 simple questions that real expertise always welcomes. First, can you explain it to me in simple terms?
Without the jargon.
Without the jargon. Second, can you defend your position with logic and evidence that anyone can understand? And third, maybe the most important one, can you be wrong? And what would it take to change your mind? Evidence. Because real expertise is never afraid of questions. It doesn't need to hide behind a piece of paper. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, let us know in the comments what really stood out to you in this conversation and if there's any related topic or new topic that you would like covered in a future video.